I'm 72 years old. I sit here in the kitchen of the same house we bought in 1982, the one on Maple Street with the cracked sidewalk out front and the backyard that still has the old tire swing I never took down. The place is too big for one person now, and quiet in a way that presses on your chest. Mary's been gone 7 years. Tommy calls, maybe twice a year. Sarah sends a text on my birthday if she remembers. The grandkids, I've got 3, don't know me except from a couple awkward visits when they were little. I look at their pictures on the fridge sometimes and wonder what stories they hear about Grandpa Jack. Probably not the good ones. I learned too late that pride destroys families, not the loud movie kind of pride, the quiet kind, the kind that makes you right even when you're wrong, that keeps your mouth shut when it should open, that tells you waiting is fine because there's always tomorrow. I didn't set out to ruin anything. I thought I was being strong, a man, a provider. Turns out I was just being stubborn, and by the time I figured that out, the damage was done. Back when I was 22, I met Mary at the VFW hall. She was 20, working the coat check, hair pinned up, laughing at something her friend said. I asked her to dance 3 times that night. She said yes, every time. We got married 6 months later in the little Methodist church on 5th Street. No big reception, just cake and punch in the basement. I promised her I'd take care of everything. I meant it. I got on at the auto plant the next year, started on the line, worked my way up to shift supervisor by the time Tommy came along in 78. Sarah followed in 81. We bought this house when they were still small. I remember carrying Tommy on my shoulders through the empty rooms, telling him this was ours, that his old man was going to make sure they never wanted for anything. I worked hard, 6 days a week sometimes, 10-hour shifts, came home smelling of grease and metal, boots heavy on the linoleum. Mary would have dinner waiting, pot roast on Sundays, spaghetti the rest of the week. The kids would run to meet me at the door. I'd scoop them up, tell them about the cars I'd fixed that day, the raises I was chasing. I was proud of that, proud of the paycheck, the roof, the fact that my kids had new shoes every fall and a bike each for Christmas. I thought that was enough. I thought if I kept the bills paid and the lawn mowed, everything else would sort itself out. But pride was already there, small and ordinary. Mary would say, "Jack, maybe we could take the kids to the lake this weekend," and I'd shake my head. Lakes for people who don't have responsibilities. She'd let it go, but I'd catch her looking out the window later, that soft, disappointed look. I never said sorry, never said, "You're right, let's go." I told myself a man doesn't apologize for doing what needs doing. Tommy was the first real crack. He was 12 when he brought home that drawing of a car he'd made in art class. Beautiful thing, all clean lines and shading. "I want to be a designer someday," he said, eyes shining. I looked at it, handed it back. "Designers don't feed families, son. You're going to learn a trade, something solid." He tried arguing. I shut it down, made him throw the drawing away. Mary found it in the trash later and taped it to the fridge. I took it down when she wasn't looking, told her we weren't encouraging foolishness. He got good grades anyway, but he hated school. At 17, he wanted to go to the technical college for drafting. I said no, pushed him toward the plant. "You'll start where I did and work up. That's how it's done." He lasted 1 semester, then joined the army instead. I was furious. We had a fight in the driveway the night before he left for basic. I told him he was throwing his life away. He told me he was tired of trying to be me. I said, "Good, because you never could." He didn't call home for 3 months after that. Mary begged me to write him. I said he'd come around. Pride. Sarah was quieter about it, but the damage was there too. She started dating Mark when she was 19. Nice enough kid, studying to be a teacher. I didn't like that he drove an old beater and wore his hair a little long. "He's not going to provide for you," I told her one night at supper. She defended him. I raised my voice. Mary tried to smooth it over. Sarah left the table crying. When they got engaged 2 years later, I didn't go to the engagement party. Told Mary I had to work late. Truth was, I couldn't stand the thought of shaking that boy's hand and pretending I approved. At the wedding, I sat in the back row, arms crossed, barely smiled in the photos. Sarah hugged me at the reception, whispered, "Thanks for coming, Dad." I nodded, didn't tell her she looked beautiful, didn't dance with her. Pride kept my feet glued to the floor. The years stacked up like that. Little things. Christmas, 1992. Tommy brought his new wife home for the first time. We argued about politics at the table, something about the election. I called his ideas soft. He left early. Mary cried in the kitchen after they drove away. "Why do you always have to be right?" she asked. I wiped the counter and said nothing. Sarah's first baby came in 98. I drove down for the birth, but stayed at a motel instead of their house. "Don't want to impose," I said. Really, I didn't want to watch Mark play the proud father while I bit my tongue. I held my granddaughter Lily for 10 minutes in the hospital, then made an excuse about traffic and left. Sarah called later, voice tired. "You could have stayed longer." I said I was busy at the shop. I'd sold the plant job by then and opened my own repair garage on the edge of town. It did okay, but I worked longer hours than ever, told myself it was for the family. Really, it was easier than sitting at home trying to talk to people I'd pushed away. I kept thinking there was time, always more time. The kids would grow up, see I was right, come back on their own terms. Mary would smooth things over like she always did. She tried. Lord, she tried. She'd say, "Jack, just call Tommy, tell him you miss him." I'd grunt, "He knows where I am." She'd sigh that sigh I knew too well and go back to her knitting. I never saw how much it wore on her until it was too late. The turning point came in the winter of 2016. Mary started coughing at night, losing weight. Doctor said lung cancer, stage 4. She'd never smoked a day in her life. We sat in the oncologist's office holding hands while he talked about months. Maybe a year if we were lucky. She looked at me in the car afterward and said, "I need you to fix this with the kids, Jack, before I go." Her voice was so small. I promised. Held her that night and cried for the first time in years, but the promise didn't stick the way it should have. She fought for 8 months. The kids came when they could. Tommy flew in from Colorado twice. Sarah drove up from Ohio with the grandkids. The house felt full again for a few days, but the air was thick. I'd catch Tommy watching me across the room, jaw tight. Sarah would try to talk to me about old times, and I'd change the subject to the weather or the price of gas. Pride wouldn't let me say, I was wrong about Mark. I was wrong about a lot. Mary died on a Tuesday in October. The funeral was at the same church we got married in. The place was packed. Neighbors, old plant buddies, people from the garage. Tommy gave the eulogy. He talked about how she always made everyone feel loved, how she was the glue. He didn't look at me once. After, back at the house, we sat in the living room with coffee going cold. Sarah said, "Mom wanted us to be a family again, Dad." I nodded. Tommy added, "She asked me to try." I said, "Well, I'm here." That was all. No apology. No, "I'm sorry for every holiday I ruined." Just, "I'm here." They left the next morning. Tommy shook my hand at the door like we were business associates. Sarah hugged me quick, her eyes wet but distant. That was 7 years ago. The silence after that was different, deeper. I called Tommy on Thanksgiving that year, left a message. He called back 2 days later, short conversation about the weather in Denver. I asked about the grandkids. He said they were fine. I didn't ask to talk to them. Sarah sent a Christmas card with a family picture. I put it on the mantel and stared at it every night for a week. Never picked up the phone to thank her. I sold the garage 2 years after Mary passed. My back was shot, knees bad. Now I get by on Social Security and the little pension. The days are long. I make coffee in the morning, sit at the table, read the paper even though the news doesn't interest me much anymore. Sometimes I drive past the old garage, see the new sign on it. Sometimes I go to the cemetery, sit on the bench by Mary's stone. I talk to her out loud. Tell her about the tomatoes I tried to grow last summer that died because I forgot to water them. Tell her I finally cleaned out her closet last spring and kept the blue sweater she wore the day we met. Tell her I'm sorry, over and over. She doesn't answer, of course, but it feels like the only honest conversation I have left. Tommy's youngest started high school this year. I saw it on Facebook. Sarah tagged him in a post. I don't have an account, but the lady at the senior center lets me look sometimes. The boy looks like Tommy did at that age. Same stubborn chin. I thought about sending a card. Never did. What would I say? Sorry I missed your whole life. I know what can't be fixed now. The birthdays I skipped. The weddings where I sat stiff and silent. The nights Mary went to bed alone because I was still mad about something small. The way my grandkids flinch when they see me on the rare visits, like I'm a stranger who might bite. The way Tommy's voice changes when he says, "Dad," careful, like he's walking on thin ice. I can't get those years back. Can't sit on the floor and play trucks with my grandson the way I should have. Can't dance with Sarah at her wedding the way she deserved. Can't hold Mary's hand and tell her I was wrong about almost everything. I'm not angry anymore. Mostly just tired and heavy. The kind of heavy that settles in your bones and doesn't leave. Some nights I lie awake listening to the furnace click on and off, thinking about all the times I chose being right over being close. All the times I told myself tomorrow I'd call, tomorrow I'd apologize, tomorrow I'd drive down and see the grandkids. Tomorrow never came. If you're listening to this and there's someone in your life you're not speaking to because of pride, maybe a son who chose a different path, a daughter whose husband you never liked, a brother you fought with over money or land or nothing at all, don't wait. I know that sounds simple. It isn't. I couldn't do it. But maybe you can. Pick up the phone, drive the miles, say the words even if they taste like dirt in your mouth. Because one day the house will be too quiet and the pictures on the fridge will be the only proof you ever had a family at all. I've got maybe a few good years left, the doctor says, if the heart holds. I spend them walking slow around the block, feeding the birds in the backyard, looking at old photo albums when the light is right. Sometimes I open the drawer where Mary kept her letters, the ones she wrote me when I was working nights early on, telling me she loved me, that she was proud. I read them and cry a little, quiet so the neighbors don't hear. Then I put them away and make another cup of coffee. The sun's going down now. Sky's turning that soft orange Mary always liked. I'll sit here a while longer, listen to the house settle. Maybe Tommy will call tonight. Maybe he won't. Either way, I know the truth I learned too late. Pride destroys families. It destroyed mine, and all that's left is this empty kitchen, these old hands, and the quiet that never quite goes away. I'm sorry, Mary. I'm sorry, kids. I'm just sorry. That's all I've got left to say.